I'm standing upon the top of one of the country's most preserved hill forts from the Iron Age, created 2,500 years ago as a settlement for aristocracy and workers. I imagine this place was used quite a lot for defense, defending against tribes, and I can see why they've built it here, because all around me you've got valleys and rolling hills from North Cornwall and also Devon as well. We're going to go on a bit of an adventure today through the lanes of northern Cornwall, just on the verge of the border of Devon, and we're going to look for a place called Canworthy Water, because I drove through here the other day and I noticed the name of this place, Canworthy Water. What? And I got thinking, what exactly does that mean? What's the origins of this tiny little village, in this little parish? What's the origins of the name Canworthy Water? But I also know that just next to Canworthy Water there is a hill fort, an Iron Age hill fort. I'm going to want to take you along on this pleasant autumn afternoon. On we go to Canworthy Water. Lots of nice old cottages around here, farmhouses, converted farmhouses. Imagine being brought up in this kind of area, probably not all that different to growing up in a rural area from another country. Everyone must know everyone, the neighbours really look out for each other. There's probably a great sense of freedom with the young kids growing up, like whether it's messing around on motorbikes in the fields. So I just imagine the young lads just getting up to mischief, not really causing any harm, but growing up in a place so remote, not many links, no transport links to other areas, just making their own fun and just getting up to no good generally. Underage drinking in barns, you know, your parents' barn, all that sort of stuff. How do I navigate this situation? Interesting. That's one of the issues of driving in rural roads, is you got those tractors. There's only a young lad driving that tractor. He probably looked about 17. I imagine he's been driving that thing since he was 13 years old. That's exactly what I mean by having a unique experience growing up, and the freedom and being trusted with heavy machinery. Bye-bye car. So here we have Living Water Methodist Church. Living Water. Warbstow Parish Council meeting 1st of October. Councillor Jordan stated he is awaiting an update on the potholes in Trellash and is hoping that the whole road will be resurfaced. Well, the question is, do we go left or do we go right? I think we go right. A lot of these old phone boxes have been repurposed, and many of them nowadays will have a defib inside. Long gone are the days where these would have a working payphone. I've seen many which have been repainted blue and also act as a second-hand book exchange. So you would drop your books off and you could pick up books if you like as well. But nowadays, mostly defibs. I imagine this is a very, very quiet place to live. And the only disturbance is the sound of 4x4s, trucks driving a little bit too quickly for the corners and the wet conditions of the road. But other than that, it's just the sound of birds Donation for an apple. That's also a very common thing that you'd get in rural England, is you'd have honesty boxes outside of a house, and there might be eggs or some preserves that people have made, jams or marmalades, or apples and other wet, like excess goods which have been grown either at the farm or in the garden of the house. Another common thing, I was going to say a common thing, is farmers on quad bikes. What I was originally going to say is you'll have houses which have their own names, like Melon House or Holsworthy Barn or something like that. And again, here's another honesty box, but this time it's for eggs grown at Melon House, which is an aptly named house given the colour. This here is the River Ottery, which I think is a tributary of the River Tamar. And the River Tamar is quite a significant river in England. It's an estuary, and it starts in Plymouth, obviously connected to the sea, and goes from Plymouth right in the south of Devon, all the way through and slices across Cornwall to the north, past Launceston, past where we are today, and almost reaches the north coast of the southwest of England. So the River Tamar almost goes from coast to coast. It's massive. Let's see what else is happening in Canworthy Water. Car wash, coffee and cake. I'm surprised by the use of AI. It shows that actually whoever made this is on the cusp of cutting edge technology. We have Pilates, we've got garden and tree services, radio advertisement, home repairs and improvements advertisement, garden services, and it's actually a bus stop. There must be very, very few bus stops around here. Anyway, the most exciting thing that we looked at was the church, and that was right when I arrived. So let's move on to the next area, shall we? We've now moved about 2 miles further down the road, and we have arrived at Warbstow Bury Hillfort, and it is a very, very cool place for a couple reasons. First of all, this is the site of an Iron Age hill fort that would have been used some 2,500 years ago. But we're really high up, and it gives us incredible views, the rolling hills of northern Cornwall, and in the distance we can see Devon. Now right over there where I'm pointing to on the far edge of the horizon, we can just start to see Dartmoor wild reserve, nature reserve areas, which have their own climates, very, very popular for hiking and cycling, like mountain biking, but also teenagers who are at school and they go on their first expeditions away from home with the school, and they do overnight camping trips and hiking trips. They often go through these big moor areas. We have the Warbstow Bury Hillfort. Warbstow Bury is the second largest and the best preserved Iron Age hill fort in Cornwall, built approximately 2,500 years ago as a tribal stronghold and residence of the local aristocracy, powerful enough to command a large workforce. It features 2 ramparts. We have the inner and the outer rampart. The site was probably abandoned in the 1st century AD when the Roman conquest changed the power structure. And I have some wicked imagery here. So that's reason number 1 why we're here. There's also a second reason. I've discovered recently that this area is brilliant for foraging mushrooms, and I'm just going to treat myself to an afternoon of relaxing, walking, and some time by myself. Here's that beautiful countryside which the GoPro wouldn't really pick up too well. And then over there, as I mentioned earlier, right on the horizon, those tall mountains, well, they're hills really. All sorts of wild mushrooms that grow here. Some of them look very colourful and almost poisonous. Others look interesting for other reasons. Once you find one like this, you start looking around, you'll notice there's plenty more. Usually there's plenty more around them. So an Iron Age hill fort, which if you don't listen too closely, it's just a bundle of words that aren't really that exciting, but when you think about what that means, it means it's a hill fort from the Iron Age, and the Iron Age spans like 1,000 years, you know, 2,000 years ago. But as a hill fort, this would have once been a settlement of some kind that aristocracy would stay at. And part of the hill fort, in the name hill fort, is a fortification on the top of a hill. And I've just walked through one of the entrances, and I'm walking past a rampart now, and all along the top of the hill, on the crest of the hill, there is this big wall made out of earth, and all that is man-made. And this is inside here, they would have made this big wall, this fortification. Well, we can see it right here. All around the perimeter, these ramparts are made from wood, stone, earth, and whatever other natural materials they could have used 2,000 years ago to help protect this place. And I imagine to protect it from not only invasions from barbarians, Vikings, and any other, like if we had tribal feuds years and years ago, not only protection from that, but also protection from the elements. We're very high up, we would be very, very exposed to the wind. And where you have Bodmin Moor over there, and it creates these rolling hills and valleys, the weather can be quite temperamental, and lots of areas around this part of Cornwall have little microclimates. And so protection from the environment, protection from people, and then protection from other animals, perhaps. I don't know, wild boar? I don't think so, maybe not. Maybe humans are probably the most dangerous animal in that list. And in the Iron Age, it spans a long period of time, and there was different advancements of technology, but I think this is a late Iron Age one, and we can probably assume they had the capacity to smelt ores, and they had certain technology, I don't know, like the wheels to make pottery, and they were able to extract metals from ores and whatnot. Amazing. And then Cornwall itself has such a rich history of mining. All over the place are scattered are the remnants of the mining industry, obviously not from the Iron Age, but now we're fast forwarding 2,000 years, and from the Industrial Revolution, and also I imagine the early 20th century. Cornwall had loads of tin mines, and there's lots of abandoned little structures that I see scattered around the fields. That's because there was so much tin that there was a whole industry built around it. I'm guessing just sheep do graze around here, which is partly why there's such a big range of mushrooms that grow here. There's no artificial fertilizers. I think it's a high quality soil. Here's another type of mushroom that's growing in some abundance here. I believe these are called mottle gills. And I think I can tell that by the straightness of the stem, the colour of the stem, but also the colour of the umbrella-y bit. I don't know what the actual name of that is. They do have this kind of nipple shape to them. I've been to a small number of hill forts and gone for walks and explored these types of areas, but what's most interesting about this particular one is just how intact it is. Often hill forts are overgrown, and it's really hard, amongst the natural lumps and bumps that might be in the terrain anyway, it's really hard to know exactly which part is the rampart, but this is incredible. It's so obvious, it's so clear. The perimeter of the hill fort, you got the first rampart here and the second rampart over there. That is a big drop. That's like a 15-foot drop. Imagine marching an army or marching a tribe across the horizon. Forget the windmills, forget the houses, and you're marching and you look back on this place on top of this hill standing proudly, and you finally march your troops all the way over. You're malnourished, you're tired, but you're sticking together because you're fighting for whatever it is that you're fighting for. Imagine not even wanting to be there. Imagine being forced to fight for some tribe because that's just what you had to do. And then you're marching across the horizon. You go through the forests, through the boggy marshland, over the hills, and you end up here, and there are these big walls that have been built. And on these walls made of earth, upon these walls, beastie men standing proudly with spears and shields. And then you finally take them on, and you get closer and closer. Then you realize you have to cross these ditches, and it might be the middle of the winter and it's full of water. You're soaking wet and you're hungry, and you battle it out amongst the ramparts. And then in here you've got the people who are working, and you've got the women and the children running around, and they're screaming and they're trying to flee that way, but over that way you've got the other army coming in. Just insane. I can almost put myself there and I can almost hear it. I can hear the sound of swords and shields clashing. Much like they would have back in the day, I'm going to use the rampart to protect me from the elements. I'm going to stop, going to have some scran and just chill out for a moment. Here's a major key. Trail mix. Make your own trail mix at home. It's so easy. Walnuts, cashews, pumpkin seeds, Brazil nuts, almonds, currants, raisins, and to top it off, got some nice juicy dates as well. Nutritious, sweet, tasty. So hard to play with cold fingers. The first time I played out and about, and it's really hard with cold fingers. Oh, the trail mix, so the one key ingredient that I missed out from my list, small chunks of dark chocolate. This little guy chilling. The world's so crazy at this scale. Imagine that. It's like a whole nother world down there. Imagine traversing that land. Little guy's got a long way to go. I wonder where he's heading. Which one of us didn't flush the toilet? Disgusting. It's a bench dedicated to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, 1926, died in 2022. Not a bad spot for a bench, I would say. So here we have a very, very old church. This church is St. Werburgh's Church, which was originally Norman, which I believe was about 1,000 years ago this was originally built, but has since been rebuilt in, I think, the 15th century. So it's since been rebuilt, and again in the 1800s more has been built onto it. Now this was just 3 minutes down the road from where we were just wandering the hills, and again we were just met with another incredible little place which has probably got so much history, so many memories, good or bad, were made inside of that church, no doubt. It's quite a big graveyard, there's lots of gravestones. Some of these dates go back quite some time, so that headstone there is dated 1860, sacred to the memory of Mary Short, who died in 1860, aged 85, I think. 1859. Some of these headstones are really old. Werber was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but she was a saint in, I think, Chester. And there's a few churches named after this lady, and this just happens to be one of them. Super old. Rundle here, in loving memory of William R. Rundle, 1890 to 1960, and we have a Beryl Rundle there. And I'm sure I've seen another Rundle somewhere. Obviously it's a local family. And we have some different style headstones here. I mean, that's so old I can't read it. Does that say 1770? Slate tiles on the roof. That's how you know it's old. Been replaced and whatnot over the years. This is quite interesting. The erection of a memorial over a grave, though no customary, remains a privilege. And strictly speaking, no memorial may be erected in a churchyard without the authority of the Chancellor of the diocese. Unfortunately, due to thefts from neighbouring churches, we feel we cannot leave the church unlocked. Well, the wind's starting to pick up, so decided to slowly trod my way back to the car. I hope you've enjoyed this. I've definitely enjoyed being out here. It's another way for me to be outdoors and enjoy myself in my own company, which I need to get better at doing. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you a lot. I hope you've had a great day. I hope things are going well for you, and I'll see you soon.